For the past few months, I've been reviewing the 2005 series of Doctor Who, which got me into being a fan all over again. So I started buying the magazine for the first time in years. In this video, I'll be looking back through my collection to see how the magazine catered for the new fans brought in by the new series, and how they covered the making of the new series and the Christmas special. We start with issue 355, dated the 27th of April 2005. Rose had just been broadcast, so it was irresistible for anyone who'd just seen it and wanted to know more. In the news section, they announced the guest stars cast for the season finale, and you could buy the Doctor Who theme music as a ringtone for only £3, plus the cost of 2 text messages. The magazine itself was only £4, so that seems a bit expensive. There's a 9-page feature taking you behind the scenes on Rose, written by Benjamin Cook, who wrote all of these similar features in this run. And we get some vivid descriptions of a long night shoot in Cardiff, depicting the scenes of the Autons attacking. He calls Billie Piper stunningly attractive. Yeah, good luck with that, mate. But it's a really good read, full of detail, and it really captures the feel of being there. There's the first instalment of the comic strip, The Love Invasion, written by Gareth Roberts, with artwork by Mike Collins. It looks great, really capturing the feel of the swinging 60s, and it even has the Doctor riding a scooter, as the 10th Doctor later would in The Idiot's Lantern. There's a feature on the design of the TARDIS, with some great photos of it being built in all the various stages, and close-ups on various bits of the consoles. So it's really interesting. Simon Callow gives an interview, which is mostly about Charles Dickens, and he mentions that he was on the shortlist to play the 8th Doctor in the TV movie, which would have been very different. Finally, we get Russell T Davies' production notes, describing the gruelling round of interviews he went through to promote the series. These are always really funny and interesting, and I'm surprised they've never been collected in a book. Maybe they will be once his reign is finally over. Issue 356 came out right before Dalek was broadcast, and it hypes you up for the episode with a big picture of the Dalek on the cover. Inside, David Tennant is announced as the new Doctor, and it explains who he is for anybody who didn't know. And the reader's letters page is full of rave reviews of Rose. There's a 10-page feature going behind the scenes on The End of the World, including Ben Cook's report from the pitch meeting where they made all the big decisions. Ben Cook interviews Yasmin Bannerman and describes her as jaw-droppingly attractive. Calm down, man. And there's interviews with a whole bunch of the actors who played the aliens, including the little kids who played the small blue ones. Nick Briggs provides the first part of his diary, behind the scenes on Dalek. He explains how he got the role, purely because of his performance in Jubilee, and he describes going to the read-through and meeting all the cast, as well as the notes he got from Russell T Davies. And it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger with him on the way to the recording. Part 2 of the comic strip has an early version of the scene from The Unicorn and the Wasp, where the Doctor is poisoned and has to eat a bunch of different things as an antidote. And there's a sneaky Bad Wolf reference hidden in the background of one of the panels. Ben Cook provides interviews with the actors who played the Slitheen, and Annette Badland teases her possible return, which you must have already known about. Bruno Langley gives an interview, mostly about his role in Coronation Street, so it's a bit boring. And Russell T Davies explains that due to BBC guidelines, the Time War is nothing to do with the War in Heaven from the BBC novels. So that clears that up. Issue 357 would have come out right before the Doctor's Answers. We get a brief interview with Billie Piper from the press launch, where so-called journalists from various publications bombarded her with questions about her marriage. But she also talks about her love of Buffy and how she wants to do a musical episode of Doctor Who. So maybe she'll get to do that this Christmas. Nick Briggs gives his account of the days he spent filming Dalek, which is immediately followed by a location report from Ben Cook, behind the scenes on the same episode. So it's fun to compare and contrast the two. There's a lot more detail in Nick Briggs' account, but Ben Cook recounts conversations and jokes verbatim, so it feels much more like being there. I don't know if he recorded everything or he just had a good memory. Plus he does interviews with some of the guest cast. John Barrowman gives an interview from the set of Boomtown, so he teases that episode a bit. And he also talks about his forthcoming nude scene, which Ben Cook assumes to be a joke. Little did he know. And in Russell T Davies' column, he mentions how he wishes he could have done a surprise regeneration, but he can't talk about it without revealing details of actors' contracts, which is all very mysterious. And at the end he says, save these pages, read these Doctor Who magazines again in 20 years' time, which is a bit spooky. Issue 358 has the Emperor Dalek on the cover. The series is now over, but there's already news that Billy Piper, Camille Coduri and Noel Clarke are all back for Series 2. And there's an interview with Noel Clarke, where he makes it clear how much he likes the ladies, and he's asked when was the last time he did something that he didn't want the press to get hold of. I imagine he'd have a different answer to that now. There's a behind-the-scenes feature on Father's Day, which is mainly an interview with Sean Dingwall, where he makes it clear how much he enjoys doing the show, so it's a good job they brought him back for the Season 2. There's a long feature about the work of the Mill, the digital effects team, so there's some beautiful images of all the effects shots they did, and explain how they accomplished them. And they also mention how they've got their own dedicated cloud storage site, which must have been very novel at the time. There's a one-off comic, Art Attack, by Mike Collins. The artwork's not bad, but the story itself is nothing special. And there's a behind-the-scenes feature on The Empty Child, where Ben Cook interviews the director, as well as Florence Hoth. Rebecca Levine reviews The Long Game. She's been giving rave reviews to every episode of Series 1 so far, but this is the first time she's had something critical to say. She tries to be positive, but she can't get around the fact that it's just a weak episode. And Russell T Davies talks about the tour meeting for Series 2 and teases the events of School Reunion without giving anything away. Issue 359 has David Tennant on the cover for the first time, but not the last. Inside there's a 7-page interview with him, where he's wearing a suit that's not too dissimilar to what the 10th Doctor would eventually wear. At the time of the interview, he's read the script for the Christmas Invasion, but hasn't filmed it yet. So he mainly talks about his early roles and his Doctor Who fandom, including how he met Tom Baker when he was a kid. There's the first part of a comic by Rob Shearman, with art by Mike Collins, set on a cruise ship on Mars, where the waters come to life. An 8-page interview with Russell T Davies has him talking about the casting of David Tennant, and he also reflects on the show's unexpected success. He talks about the years beforehand when they were trying to get the show off the ground, and he mentions some of the problems they had with the first block of filming, though obviously it's still far too recent for him to give a warts-and-all account. Maybe someday. There's an interview with the costume designer Lucinda Wright, where she talks about designing the 9th Doctor's costume and the sketches of various costumes from the series, including one for the pig in a spacesuit, which you wouldn't have thought was her department. At the end, Russell T Davies talks about how the Bad Wolf concept came about, and he teases that the word for the next series has already been set on screen, and it's an anagram. Of course, that turned out to be Torchwood. I didn't buy the next few issues, but I came back for issue 363 a few months later. This has a tribute to the 9th Doctor. In the news, Torchwood is already announced, which would have been a year before it was broadcast, so I guess that makes sense. And there's an 8-page tribute to Christopher Eccleston, which includes a report from his final day of filming on the scenes on the Dalek ship. And there's gushing eulogies from various members of the cast and crew who worked with him throughout the series, as if he was dead. The comic is the first part of A Groat's Worth of Wit by Gareth Roberts, with art by Mike Collins. It's kind of like an early version of the Shakespeare Code, only with Robert Greene instead of William Shakespeare, who has been transported to present-day London by a mysterious alien force, and he wreaks havoc. So it's not much like the Shakespeare Codes at all. The results of the season survey are in, and their ranking of the stories is very similar to the ranking I did myself just a few weeks ago. So I guess nothing changes. And of course, best writer goes to Russell T Davies, best director Joey Hearn, guest actor John Barrowman, guest actress Florence Hoth, best monster the Daleks, best villain the Emperor Dalek, and greatest contribution, Christopher Eccleston. Can't really argue with any of that. The review section off the shelf is quite interesting this month, with reviews of Spiral Scratch, Thicker Than Water, Live 34 and the 2005 Annual, all of which I've reviewed myself on this channel over the past year or so. So it's interesting to see that they were all published around about the same time. If anything, they're more positive about Spiral Scratch and more critical about Thicker Than Water. And Steven Moffat writes the production notes, possibly for the first time. He talks about having to cut a scene from The Girl in the Fireplace before they finally figured out how to do it. So I presume he's talking about the scene where the Doctor's riding the horse that goes through the window. But he talks about it vaguely enough that it doesn't really spoil anything. Issue 364 previews the Christmas Invasion on the cover. Ben Cook provides a 10-page interview with Billie Piper. He must have been absolutely delighted. She talks about winning Best Actress in the NTA Awards. She teases season 2 of the show and talks about the differences between Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant. And there's a handy timeline of her entire career so far, running down the bottom of the page. Part 2 of the comic introduces a lecherous William Shakespeare, who tries to assault Rose. Thankfully they turned it down in the eventual TV adaptation. And there's a rather nice final panel saying goodbye to the comics version of the Ninth Doctor. There's a fun feature looking back at the Doctor Who branded comics as annuals, which weren't entirely faithful to the show, as anyone who's read them will know, and Gareth Roberts provides a fun story imagining what the writers of the old annuals might have made of the new series, with paragraphs like, Rose Taylor sighed. Honestly, Doctor, she sighed, you promised we'd be landing on Xenical by now. Patience, my dear girl, opined the Time Lord. Just as soon as I've fixed the transducing computers of TARDIS, we'll be on our way. You'll simply love Xenical. The three-legged family of my close friend Swedge are among my closest friends. I wonder how his daughter Vip is doing with her studies at the Xenicalial Polyversity. Rose sighed and flopped into the Doctor's beloved new swivel chair. She was beginning to wonder if they'd ever get to Xenical, and she was thinking lovely of her home in the peaceful village of Corfordshire. So you get the idea about that. An interview with Steven Moffat has him talking about the anachronistic tape recorder in The Empty Child, as well as praising David Tennant and looking back on season 1 in general. So it's really interesting to hear his thoughts on this series at this moment in time. And Russell T Davies addresses the lack of deleted scenes in the DVD box set and promises that they will all be included in the next one. I don't think the season 1 deleted scenes ever made it to any DVDs. I could be wrong. Maybe they'll be in a forthcoming Blu-ray collection. Finally, for now, issue 365. Technically, this is from 2006, but it does have behind the scenes on the Christmas Invasion, which was the last episode I reviewed. In the news, Stephen Fry's episode has been delayed till Series 3, although of course it never actually made it to screen. I wonder if we'll ever find out what that was about. Maybe Big Finish will do their own version one of these days. Behind the scenes of the Christmas Invasion takes up a whopping 28 pages. A lot of this is taken up with Ben Cook asking the cast what they do for Christmas. Sadly, he doesn't get an invitation round to Billy's house. We get coverage from the initial tone meeting right up to post-production, covering how they filmed the TARDIS crashing. The crew point out all the little details on the Sycorax costume. We hear about the filming sessions down in the caves, how they filmed the sword fight in Barry Island. The actor who played the Sycorax leader gives an interview in character, which is rather strange. The costume designer explains all the details of the Doctor's new costume. And the Mill talk about how they did all the visual effects. So it's all very comprehensive and a fine read as always. The Betrothal of Sontar is the first part of a comic strip by John Tomlinson and Nick Abadsis, with art by Mike Collins. This is the first 10th Doctor comic strip. I'm not sure they've got his face quite right, but the outfit is spot on. And we get to see the 10th Doctor meeting the Sontarans 2 years earlier than he did on screen. And in Russell T Davies' final production notes for now, he's already talking about Series 3 and the pigs from the Dalek story. It's crazy that they were already planning so far ahead. So that was Doctor Who in 2005. The show was at the height of its popularity, and the magazine did a good job of covering it. with Ben Cook's detailed behind-the-scenes reports, Russell T Davies giving insight into its process and teasing what was coming next, and interviews with all the cast and crew, and only for £4 a month. It was an absolute bargain. I kept buying it regularly until the end of the Capaldi years, after which both the show and the magazine went downhill. So I may do more videos like this after I review each year of the show. If you're interested in seeing more, then give this video a like, and I'll be back next week with reviews of the first 4 New Adventures books from the 90s. See you next time.